Hello, in this video we discuss about price consumption curve. Price consumption curve. In the short form it is denoted by PCC. Now first, what is the definition of price consumption curve? PCC, price consumption curve, is the locus. PCC is the locus of points in the commodity space. In the commodity space. Shows the equilibrium commodity bundle. Shows the equilibrium commodity bundle bundles resulting from variation in price ratio. Variation in price ratio keeping money income constant. Suppose a consumer wants to maximize utility. Suppose a consumer wants to maximize utility. This is u equals to u of x comma y. We are considering two goods, x and y. This small x denote the quantity of the commodity x consumed. This shows the quantity of commodity y consumed. The budget constraint of the consumer, this is m equals to xpx plus ypy. What is m? M is the spendable money income. Px and py are the price per unit of x and y respectively. Consumer wants to maximize utility subject to this budget constraint. The consumer wants to maximize utility subject to budget constraint. We know the equilibrium condition is that the indifference curve and the budget line are tangent to each other. In equilibrium commodity bundle. Equilibrium commodity bundle will be attained where the indifference curve is tangent to the budget line or budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. Now, tangency point means what? The slope of the indifference curve equals to the slope of the budget line. equilibrium, absolute slope of the indifference curve equals to absolute slope of the budget line. Slope of the budget line. That is, the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. That is, the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. Now I am drawing the graph. On the horizontal axis, I am measuring the quantity of commodity X. On the vertical axis, I am measuring the quantity of commodity Y. We know the budget line is downward sloping. It looks like this, A1, B1. And this is the point of tangency where IC, this is indifference curve. I am denoting it by IC1, and E1 is the point of tangency. E1 is the point of tangency. E1 shows the equilibrium commodity bundle. E1 shows the equilibrium commodity bundle. Equilibrium commodity bundle. Now suppose price of X, that is Px, falls, keeping Py and M constant. Keeping Py and M constant. What does it mean? It means that the vertical intercept of the budget line, the vertical intercept of the budget line, vertical intercept of the budget line is what? M by Py. Now M and Py constant, therefore M by Py, numerator, denominator both are constant, therefore the ratio is constant. That means the vertical intercept remains unchanged. The vertical intercept of the budget line is M by Py, which is constant, that is, it remains unchanged. It remains unchanged. Now, the horizontal intercept, what is the horizontal intercept of the budget line? This is M by Px. Now, M, numerator, is constant. Px, the denominator falls, therefore the ratio rises. The horizontal intercept rises, that is, it rises. Horizontal intercept rises. And the slope of the budget line? Slope of the budget line. We take the absolute value. This is Px by Py. Slope of the budget line is what? Minus Px by Py. We take the absolute value, the mod value. Now Px falls, Py remains constant. What does it mean? The ratio falls. That is, the budget line becomes flatter. The budget line becomes flatter. Therefore, the budget line rotates from, hence, the budget line rotates from A1B1 to A1B2 to A1B3 ... Looks like this. This is A1 B1. This is, sorry, A1 B2. This is A1 B3. These are the straight line budget lines. Now we get the corresponding amount of equilibrium points. Suppose this is E2 and this is E3. This is E3. Now in this commodity space, from E1 we get the equilibrium commodity bundle, E2 is the equilibrium commodity bundle, and E3 we another commodity bundle in equilibrium. Now the price ratio changes. Price ratio changes indicated by fall in Px by Py. Money income remains constant. Therefore, PCC is the locus of different combinations of the commodity bundles. That is the locus of E1, E2, E3. PCC is the locus of different points of E1, E2, E3. I am drawing it by a red line. This is the PCC. This is the PCC. The relevant portion of PCC is this. The red color line shows the relevant portion of the PCC. Now from the PCC we get the own price elasticity, cross price elasticity, and the demand curve. And the shape of the PCC is not necessarily like this, the upward sloping. PCC can be horizontal, PCC can be vertical, PCC can be backward bending, PCC can be downward sloping also. That depends on the nature of the commodities. First, we check the relationship between X and Y. We derive the price elasticity of X, cross price elasticity of Y, and the nature of the demand curve for this shape of the PCC. I am saying that the PCC is not necessarily upward sloping. PCC can be horizontal, PCC can be vertical, PCC can be backward bending, it can be downward sloping also. Now, for this shape, we want to derive the price elasticity of X, cross price elasticity of Y, and the demand curve. Okay, let's start. From this diagram or by construction, we see that as Px falls, keeping Py and M constant, equilibrium quantity of both goods rises. From here I am dropping, this is x1, this is x2, and this is x3. This is y1, this is y2, and this is y3. The initial combination is x1, y1, then the combination becomes x2, y2, then the combination becomes x3, y3. Equilibrium quantities of both goods rises from x1 to x3, y1 to y3. Now M equals to what? X Px plus y Py. Now Py constant, y rises. What does it mean? That YPY must rise. YPY rises. YPY rises. Now M is constant. The sum of two numbers is constant. That is XPX plus YPY is constant. YPY rises. That means what? XPX must fall. Since M is constant, XPX plus YPY equals to M. M is constant, this part YPY rises, therefore XPX must fall. Must fall. Now, as PX falls, by construction X rises. X rises. Now, X rises, PX falls, and the product is falling. One variable is increasing, another is falling, and the product is falling. Therefore, the fall in PX is stronger than the rise in X. The percentage fall in PX is greater than the percentage rise in X. Percentage rise in X. What does it mean? Percentage rise in quantity demanded. Quantity demanded for X by percentage fall in price of X is less than 1. Now, what does it mean? Percentage rise in quantity demanded by percentage fall in price is the measure of own price elasticity of demand. Therefore, the own price elasticity of demand for X is less than 1. This is the measure of the own price elasticity of demand. Percentage rise in quantity demanded for X, percentage fall in quantity demanded for price of X. This is less than 1. Therefore, own price elasticity, that is X, own price elasticity is less than 1. Therefore, the own price elasticity is relatively inelastic. X, therefore, X is relatively inelastic. That is, own price elasticity is inelastic or inelastic demand. I am drawing the demand curve. On the vertical axis, we are measuring quantity price of X, and on the horizontal axis, we are measuring the quantity of X. We are dropping the perpendicular. This is a panel diagram. From X1, this is we are getting X2 and we are getting X3 also. Now suppose this is our Px1, this is Px2 and this is Px3. Px3. Taking the locus of these points, we get the demand curve. Taking the locus of these points, we get the demand curve. This is the demand curve. Demand curve for X. Demand curve for X. X is relatively inelastic. Now, what about the cross price elasticity? Cross price elasticity Y rises, quantity demanded of Y rises, Px falls. As Px falls, Y rises. That is, del Y by del Px is negative, or del Y by del Px into Px by Y is negative. Negative means what? X and Y are complementary goods. X and Y are complementary goods. Cross price elasticity is negative means X and Y are complementary goods. Complementary goods. X and Y are not perfect complement. This is not the example of perfect complement. Here X and Y are simply complementary goods. I hope everybody understood this part. Now we draw the different shapes of PCC. Suppose the PCC is vertical. Suppose the PCC is vertical. Suppose PCC is vertical. Vertical means what? I am drawing the PCC here. These are the different budget lines when Px falls, keeping Py and M constant. The budget line rotates as usual from A1B1 to A2B2 to A1B1 to A1B2 to A1B3, and the PCC is vertical. First I am drawing a vertical line. Always remember, if I draw a parallel straight line from A parallel to the x-axis, then PCC cannot cross this line. Okay, this is PCC. Relevant portion of PCC is vertical. And I am drawing now indifference curve. This is IC1, this is IC2, this is IC3, and this is E3, E2, E1. The locus of equilibrium commodity bundles, that is the locus of E1, E2, E3, is the PCC, and the PCC is vertical. Therefore, this is x1 and x1 will not change. In the horizontal axis we are measuring x, on the vertical axis we are measuring price. x1 remains unchanged. That is, this is x1. Now px falls. Px falls from px1 to px2 to px3. This is the demand curve. The demand curve is vertical. Demand curve for x. Now M equals to what? X px plus y py. In this case, x is constant. Therefore, percentage change in x is 0. Therefore, percentage change in quantity demanded for x by percentage change in price of x is 0, or own price elasticity is 0. That is, the demand is perfectly inelastic. The demand is perfectly inelastic because own price elasticity is 0, perfectly inelastic. This is the demand curve. Now what about the cross price elasticity? From here, quantity demanded of y increases, y1 to y2 to y3. Now y increases, by construction y increases, py constant, x falls, px falls, this rises, y rises, py constant, py is constant and px falls. That is the inverse relationship between px and y. There is inverse relation between px and y. That means del y by del px is negative. Therefore, del y by del px into px by y is less than 0. That is, the cross price elasticity is negative. The cross price elasticity is negative. Cross price elasticity is negative. Hence, x and y are complementary goods. Hence, x and y are complementary goods. Now, when PCC is vertical, then the demand curve is also vertical. Own price elasticity is perfectly inelastic. It is perfectly inelastic, and the cross price elasticity is also negative. X and y are complementary goods. Though it is not perfect complement, it is simply complementary goods. I hope everybody understood this part. Now we draw PCC is horizontal. PCC is horizontal. I am drawing here x, y. Again I am drawing the budget line A1, B1, A1, A1, B2 and then A1, B3. Because Px falls, keeping Py and M constant. PCC is horizontal. First I am drawing the horizontal part, the PCC. Then I am drawing the indifference curve. This is the locus. And I am dropping a perpendicular from the equilibrium. x1, this is x2 and this is x3. Y remains constant. Y remains constant at y5. What will be the demand curve? Shape of the demand curve and the own price elasticity and the cross price elasticity. Here M equals to xpx plus ypy. I am drawing the PCC for x here because px changes, keeping py and M constant. Therefore, I am drawing always the PCC for x. Now, M equals to xpx plus ypy. Y remains constant and py is also assumed to be constant. What does it mean? Ypy. Y is constant, Py is constant. This is also constant. Now M is constant. Therefore, M is constant, Ypy is constant. Therefore, xpx is also constant. Therefore, xpx must be constant. must be constant. XPX must be constant means what? The expenditure on X is constant. When we know when the expenditure on a commodity is constant, then the own price elasticity is unity. We show this thing. XPX is constant. XPX equals to say K, which is a constant. We take the total differentiation of this thing. X, we first keep X constant, dpx plus px into dx equals to 0. The differentiation of a constant term is 0. Or px dx equals to minus x dpx and dx by dpx into x by px equals to minus 1. This is the own price elasticity. This is the own price elasticity. That is Exx is minus 1 or mod Exx is 1. Therefore, the own price elasticity is unity. The own price elasticity is unity. When the own price elasticity is unity, the demand curve is rectangular hyperbola. This we know. For unit price elasticity, demand curve is rectangular hyperbola. Rectangular hyperbola. I am drawing a rectangular hyperbola. This is our px1. This is x1. This is px2. For the rectangular hyperbola, say this is C1, this is C2. The area of OPX1, C1, X1. The area of OPX1, C1, X1 is equals to OPX2, C2, X2. This rectangle, that is OPX2, C2, X2, has the same area of the rectangle OPX1, C1, X2. Rectangular hyperbola. This is the demand curve. Demand curve for X. Now I am drawing another. This is X3, Px3. The demand curve is downward sloping and convex to origin. The demand curve is downward sloping and convex to origin. Now, y remains constant. As px falls, y remains constant. As px falls, y remains constant. What does it mean? That is, x and y are not related. This implies x and y are not related group. Cross price elasticity is 0. Cross price elasticity is 0. Cross price elasticity is 0. X and y are not related good. Cross price elasticity is 0. I hope everybody understood this part. That is, we have done PCC is upward sloping, PCC is horizontal, PCC is vertical. Now we draw PCC is downward sloping. PCC is downward sloping. Is downward sloping. Is downward sloping. I am drawing PCC here. This is Y, this is X, this is the commodity space. I am drawing the budget line. A1, B1, A1, B2, A1, B3. PCC is downward sloping. The relevant portion of PCC looks like this. Now, this is the equilibrium point. This is E1, this is E2, this is E3. Look, I am drawing in the reverse way. First we draw the PCC and then we plot the equilibrium. It is easy to draw. Therefore, I am drawing this. If I draw first the indifference curve, then taking the locus, then it will be difficult to draw. This is your x1, this is x2, this is x3. This is your y1, this is y2, and this is y3. Now, as px falls, y falls, x rises by construction. As px falls, y falls, x rises. Now, y falls, py constant. Y falls, quantity demanded for y falls. The equilibrium quantity of y falls, py constant. This is assumed. Therefore, ypy is falling. Ypy is falling. This is the number one thing. Now, first we do the cross price elasticity. As px falls, y falls. That is, y and px moves in the same direction. Y and px moves in the same direction. That is, cross price elasticity is positive. Cross price elasticity is positive. Cross price elasticity is positive. X and y are substitute goods. X and y are substitute goods. Okay. Now we do the own price elasticity. Ypy is falling, M is constant. M is constant. Therefore, xpx must rise. Xpx must rise. Now, px falls, x rises. X rises. And xpx also rises. What does it mean? That is, the percentage rise in x is greater than the percentage fall in px. Percentage, because the product is rising, one variable is falling, px is falling, x is rising. Therefore, rise in x must be stronger than the fall in px. Percentage rising quantity demanded for X by percentage fall in Px. Percentage rise in quantity demanded is greater than the percentage fall in Px. Percentage rise in quantity demanded for X is greater than the percentage fall in Px. Therefore, this ratio is greater than 1. That is, own price elasticity is greater than unity. Greater than unity. Therefore, the X is relatively elastic. Therefore, X is relatively elastic. X is relatively elastic demand. X has relatively elastic demand. On the horizontal axis, we are measuring X. On the vertical axis, we are measuring Px. This is X1, this is X2, this is X3. Relatively elastic demand. Demand curve is downward sloping. Demand curve for X. Elastic demand. Elastic demand. Therefore, when the PCC is downward sloping, X has relatively elastic demand and the X and Y are substitute goods, though not perfectly substitute. X and Y are substitute goods. Now, we consider the PCC for given good. PCC for the given good. Everybody, I hope everybody understood this part, that is the PCC is downward slope. In this case, it is called PCC is backward bending. PCC is backward bending. That is PCC for X, price consumption curve for X, when X is given good. Now, what is given good? For given good, law of demand does not hold. For given good, law of demand does not hold. Law of demand does not hold means quantity demanded and price are positively related. That is, as Px falls, keeping Py and M constant, quantity demanded for X also falls. That is, price elasticity, the demand curve is positively sloped. The demand curve is positively sloped. Now I am drawing the graph of PCC. PCC always drawn in the commodity space, that is X on the horizontal axis and Y on the vertical axis. And the demand curve is drawn in the quantity price space. This is your A1, B1, A1, B2, A1, B3. First I am drawing the PCC. It is like this. PCC, PCC, it is backward bending. PCC usually starts from the origin, usually starts from this point, that is the vertical intercept point of the budget line, usually start, not necessarily always. PCC usually starts from this origin, and for this particular case PCC starts from this point. Initially the good is not given, then it becomes given. Now this is our x1, this is x2, and this is x3. X3. Therefore, the demand curve, this is x1, this is x2, this is x3. This is, here we measure price of x, here quantity of x. Px1, this is Px2, this is Px3. We take the locus of this point, we get the upward sloping demand curve. Demand curve for x. Hence, for the given good, PCC is backward bending. I am drawing the indifference curve and the equilibrium point. These are the indifference curve. This is IC1, this is IC2, this is IC3. This is IC1, IC2, IC3. This is E1, this is E2, this is E3. The locus of E1, E2, E3 is the PCC. The locus of E1, E2, E3 is PCC, and in this case PCC is backward bending. For the given good, PCC is backward bending. Always remember, for given good PCC is backward bending. Why? For given good, law of demand does not hold. Price and quantity demanded are positively related. That means when Px falls, quantity demanded. As Px falls, keeping Py and n constant, quantity demanded for x also falls, and the demand curve is upward sloping. In this case, as Px falls, y, quantity demanded for y also rises. That means as Px falls, quantity demanded for y rises. This is an inverse relationship. Del y by del Px is inverse, negatively sloped. Therefore, cross price elasticity is negative. Cross price elasticity is negative. Therefore, x and y are complementary goods. Complementary goods. Therefore, we have done the PCC when it is upward sloping, when it is horizontal, when it is vertical, when it is downward sloping, and when it is backward bending. Therefore, we have done 5 cases of PCC, and we draw the demand curve, own price elasticity, cross price elasticity for all 5 cases. I hope everybody understood the PCC, the shape of PCC, and how the demand curve are related, the shape of PCC and the demand curve, how they are related, and how the own price elasticity, cross price elasticity are related with the different shapes of PCC. I hope everybody understood this thing. That's it for this video. Thank you.